Hello and welcome to It's Always Sunny in Hollywood. My name is Patrick, and before we get started, I just wanted to say, hey Lane buddy, if you're listening to this, listen, I heard about what happened between you and Beth, and I just wanted to say, would you be okay if I took out Beth?
Uh, my name is Lugia, and I want my $2.
God, I was wondering how long that silence was gonna go. I'm Drum Arts. I don't know what else I can reference. My cartoons are
This
coming
movie
to
is being
life.
recorded. You could reference the hat being thrown up in and how Lane had to buy the guy a new hat. There's a lot of lines from this movie, but anyway, yeah,
Constant
today we're
car
talking.
accident. I accidentally crashed my car into you. I was like, what?
And the guy was ready to activate your dental plan. Okay, we can get into all that later. Let's breeze through the news first.
Yes,
Red,
the
that means you.
news. E3 is dead. There's no longer gonna be E3. E3 is over. Remember that thing from when we were young lads?
When Shigeru Miyamoto came up on stage with the Hylian shield and the Master Sword, and everyone lost their shit.
Reggie Fils-Aimé said his body was ready. The PS3 announced and it had no games. The Wii music.
And you know, with the
Yeah.
PS5, some things never change, eh?
God, it's so funny. How many years has the PS5 been out?
A couple
now?
of years by this point.
3. It launched in
Yeah.
2020.
Okay, 3 years, and there are less original games on the PS5 than there are numbers on the system. I used to like it was really funny. Like I used to make this joke with some of my other friends where it was like it's called the PS5 because it only has 5 games. It has less than 5 now because one of those exclusive games stopped being exclusive. And it was like, oh my
Yeah,
god,
Ratchet and
like,
Clank,
this is
right?
such a
Because that's
bad-
on Steam now.
It is? I didn't even know that.
So
Wait,
is
so how
that
many
like
fucking
3 then? Is that 3 then?
Isn't that
3
2?
No,
exclusives?
they might have added some stuff. Actually, I'm gonna look right now. PS5 exclusive games.
PS5 has, what is it, Astro's Playroom? That was like a launch
A-
title?
Astro's Playroom is like a tech demo, so that barely even
Yeah,
counts. But
so,
yeah,
I mean, but it is a
Demon Souls, which
platformer.
is Demon Souls, which is a remake of the 2020 game Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I believe that's a sequel to Final Fantasy Remake. So okay, they got one with Final Fantasy Remake. Marvel's Wolverine, which hasn't come out yet. Spider-Man 2. Horizon Call of the Mountain, like these are all just sequels and shit. It's like Rise of the okay, everything on the list are just
Oh, question. Other
haven't
than
come out yet.
Spider-Man 2, is there any reason to own a PlayStation 5 over any other system?
Better
I mean,
performance for older games?
there's no reason to. I mean, there's nothing on Xbox either. Like, there's just nothing to get this entire console generation.
No,
Cause
Xbox has
Unless
Game
unless you
Pass,
unless
and
you
a
have a
lot of people
Switch.
like that.
yeah, but like you can just Steam sales are so cheap. Like you can basically just get all those games on there too. Like I don't know. Like basically the only reason people have a PS5 is because they don't want to have a PC. And like no one's getting Xbox, so it's basically there's just one console. It's the PS5. Nintendo does their own thing, so that doesn't even count. And then PC. So it's either you have PC or you have the PS5. That's it. Console
Mega, now's your
generation
chance
is
to jump
dying.
back into console manufacturing.
From what I understand, most like PS5 exclusives are still like most like modern games are still being made for PS3. It's just like I guess the technological leap from PS4 to 5
If
just
they're
isn't like
still
that.
supporting the PlayStation 3?
No, 4.
You
Okay,
said 3.
alright. I was like, 3? Yeah, you
Oh,
did
I
say
meant
3. I was
4.
like, wait, what? Really?
And listen, PS3
Oh,
isn't
that
that
came out that's
impressive. I
nearly
mean,
20
Just
years
Dance was
old.
still coming out on Wii until this year, I think.
Well, yeah, but the Wii is like was built for casuals.
Yeah, the Wii is like
PlayStation 3 is like
again,
hardcore.
Nintendo consoles don't count because they're weird. They do their own odd little thing, so they don't die the same. They have a different lifespan.
Tell
They're
that to Wii U
operating on a different
owners.
plane. Yes,
Wii
but
U was the dark
the
age.
difference is the Wii U didn't have a good gimmick. Motion
It had a
was a
it
neat
had a
gimmick.
confusing gimmick. It had a confusingly marketed gimmick,
It was
but that's
basically
its
just
own
like
discussion.
here's the thing: the Wii U was basically just like, what if we made the DS into like a home console, and everyone was like,
Basically.
we don't want that. We're just gonna keep playing our DS. And then Nintendo was like, fuck, wait, hold on. And also, like, they confusingly marketed because I remember when I got the Wii U, I thought it was like gonna be like a Switch where like I could just play it. And it was like I can play it like in a different part of my house, just like on the bottom screen, which I did sometimes. I played Rayman Legends just on the bottom screen sometimes, but that's it. Like, I don't know. Anyway,
This was a segment
what was
about
I talking
E3,
about?
right? E3.
Right.
This started with E3 being dead, then we talked about the PlayStation 5 and how there's no games, and then it switched back to the Wii U.
which is
Okay,
good.
yeah. So anyway, the
Yeah.
E3. So yeah, 2019 was like the last time I really remember anyone caring about E3. I think it was because of let's see, Keanu Reeves. He came out for like the Cyberpunk 2077. And he was like, you're breathtaking or some shit, right?
Yeah.
Was that it? And then they also had that the lady who announced Ghostwire Tokyo. I think she like inspired some like Bayonetta shit or something. But yeah, people thought she was charming. That was the last time people really cared about E3. Then COVID completely fucked up the event, and every single company just decided to have like their digital only Nintendo Direct ripoffs. And now everything is just Nintendo Direct and the Game Awards, and that's it. I think sometimes there'll be announcements at PAX because PAX is a convention. When E3 was like an industry event, it was basically like an expo that for some reason, because gamers are weird, they started going there. So they decided to try to make it into a convention. But it was really a journalist expo and for like investors and shit. So it was like really funny. E3 is just like a weird thing that really should never have existed, but ended up existing. Kung Fu Panda 4 trailer came out. You guys see it?
I did not. I've only ever seen the
I did.
first Kung Fu Panda.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't see 2 or 3.
I would recommend 2. 3 isn't great, but it's not bad or anything. It's just you know how third entries are, where they're kind of like weak for some
Yeah.
reason, especially if the second one's like better. Because like if the
My
second one's the
stance
best
with
one,
the
the third one is always like the mid one. If the second one sucks, then the third one is generally pretty decent. That's how I
my stance
noticed.
with Kung Fu Panda is that I've seen the first one many, many times. I've only seen 2 and 3 once.
Really, 2 is my favorite one. Interesting.
I remember I thought 3 was okay. I do not remember what I thought of 2.
2 is amazing. 2 is the one that had like the scene halfway through the
I
movie where you
remember
just see
I
a panda
remember bits
genocide.
of 2. I don't remember what I thought of it.
I know a lot of people cry because halfway through the movie, they show a panda genocide.
I have similar sentiments about Kung Fu Panda 4. I'm not sure what to think. It looks good, but I don't know.
It looks okay. Here's a weird thing. So you know how you saw the wolf lady in that trailer, right?
Uh-huh.
A common complaint on Twitter, and honestly, I kind of agree, is that Kung Fu Panda, like if you look at Kung Fu Panda 2, they had wolves too, and those had like super
Mhm.
unique designs, and everyone's just like, this wolf lady just kind of looks like she'd fit in like Zootopia or any Disney movie. So a lot of people are like, that's kind of disappointing because Kung Fu Panda had such a unique look to it, and now it just kind of looks generic. And also, they're kind of milking like the Tai Lung nostalgia, so people are like, that's kind of like disappointing. I'm still gonna be optimistic just because like, admittedly, the trailers for all the previous Kung Fu Panda movies weren't that good to begin with either, and like those movies turned out to be surprisingly good. So like, the fact that this has a shitty trailer honestly makes me like hope that there's some that probably will be good, but at the same time, it's disappointing because
It is very
it
weird
has
that
a
the Furious
generic
5
design.
aren't here or even mentioned. It's
Yeah,
just
apparently
Poe
Furious
and this new
5 aren't.
character.
Yeah, apparently they're not going to be in the movie. Like that's also kind of weird because like
Really?
they're.
That is
Yeah,
very weird.
this feels like more like a spin-off than like a real sequel. Like this is kind of like how Toy Story 4 like probably should have just been called Woody, because like it's really not a Toy Story movie. It's just Woody. It's Woody and Bo Peep, and this is Poe and some lady. Who knows? It might turn out
We'll see.
decent. I thought Toy Story 4 was a fine film, so who knows? It might be okay. The suit actor for Godzilla in the Heisei series has passed away at 76 years old. Rest in peace, Kenpachiro Satsuma. And the last bit of news is you know how there was a live action One Piece?
Yeah.
Have you guys seen it?
I have seen the first
No.
season. I'm not familiar with One Piece as a whole. I've never seen any episode of the original anime. But
Well, here's the thing.
the live action one was okay.
Well, good news for you, Lugia, because they're remaking the anime for some reason. Apparently, we're getting a One Piece remake adapting the East Blue Saga. What's funny is the East Blue Saga is what the live action One Piece was already adapting. So you're just getting that again, but animated for some reason.
Do you think
And
they're ever
again,
just gonna they're never gonna kill this franchise. It's gonna keep going and get reincarnated.
I feel like they're like starting these reboots because Oda has announced that the series is ending. He's on his last arc now. So like all these people are like, "Oh my god, this series has been carrying our company for 25 years. Oh fuck, we're gonna lose our cash cow soon."
We need
So
to
they're
make
just
this
like,
longer than Sesame Street.
it's like, yeah, so One Piece is getting a remake, and they're just remaking. This is like the fourth remake of Romance Dawn. Romance Dawn is like the original thing. So fifth remake actually, because there was the movie. They had like this anniversary short film adaptation, the original anime, the live action, and now this. 5 times they've adapted this part of the One Piece story. Why? Just skip to Alabasta or some shit. That's like everyone's favorite arc. That's like the one that Alabasta onward is when One Piece like went from like a cool shonen series to like the biggest thing in the world. It's cool, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how different it's gonna look because like One Piece was actually one of the first anime to already be done during the digital pipeline, so it doesn't have like the difference between like cell shaded stuff versus like now like. But I don't know. Like they had an anniversary Naruto short earlier this year, and that looked pretty different from the original. So who knows? It might look different, but
All right, before we jump into the movie of the day, let's talk about some movies of the past briefly because, well, it's December as of recording this, and the National Film Registry has announced its 25 selected films for preservation. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but these are just a few of the ones that stood out to me that were included.
yeah. And
The
I
first
added
Home
one
Alone,
that
The Nightmare
uh,
Before Christmas, Lady and the Tramp, Terminator 2, and 12 Years a Slave.
and I added Bamboozled just because that's a very good and kind of unique film that I was surprised got added because the entire movie is about how do I describe the plot? So it's directed by Spike Lee, who directed Do the Right Thing. So yeah, it's very much a commentary about how it's kind of like the Boondocks, where it's just making fun of black entertainment television, whereas like the whole thing is basically a bunch of black people put on a modern day minstrel show, kind of like what like King Batch did on Vine, and it was like so it's a very like kind of sharp, interesting, very politically charged film that I was like surprised that to see that alongside all these crowd pleaser films like Home Alone and Lady and the Tramp. I mean, they did put 12 Years a Slave, but that's also like prestigious when Bamboozled is like kind of like a raunchy kind of comedy, and there's like it's got a real edge to it. So yeah, I was just like, that's a very
Honestly,
unique pick.
all of these make sense to me because
Yeah,
like all
no,
these like are pretty iconic.
these are all pretty significant films. Lady and the Tramp surprised me a little just because like I know it's
I mean,
iconic, but like
Yeah,
the
that
kiss
one
scene,
seems
the
like
kiss.
the
I
outlier.
guarantee you, the kiss scene is what got it into the National Film Registry.
I know, but like I feel like at that point you might as well just induct every Disney movie that's ever been made into the registry that like made money because it's
Yeah,
like
Black Cauldron.
everyone's seen it. Is like no, that made money. I said that made money. It's like everyone's seen it, but like that doesn't mean like it's really like all that significant culturally. But, like yeah, whatever.
Well, actually, I have a question for both of you. So the rules with the National Film Registry is that it needs to be 10 years after film's release for it to be inducted. What is a film of the past like 9 years that you think will be inducted?
Within the past nine
Uh,
years or after
Within
9
like
years?
2004, any film after 2014.
Okay.
Whiplash.
Funny
Whiplash
because
is
I think La La Land is going to be inducted.
yeah, Whiplash and La La Land probably both because those are pretty significant.
Both of those,
Um,
I think Into the Spider-Verse because of the impact it's had on animation.
Definitely Spider-Verse.
yeah,
I know it's too
I
recent to
can
say
see
this,
it.
but Oppenheimer. I think Oppenheimer is like close to a
Mm.
masterpiece.
Oppenheimer is like surprisingly pretty popular. Like I
Joker
would say
is
Barbie,
definitely going to be inducted.
What it?
maybe. I
I
don't
have a
know.
feeling just because of how big it was.
Did the Avengers get inducted yet?
No, it
Avengers
didn't.
2012? Because like
The Dark
if
Knight
Avengers,
was, but not the no, Iron Man was inducted. I think last year.
oh okay, then yeah, maybe Infinity War Endgame might get inducted too. But again, like these are like because like I looked at the list and like there's also like a bunch of artistic feats, not just like
Well,
popular
yeah,
ones. Like I'm trying to
I
think of like
know, but
artistic
I don't
feats.
know the artsy ones.
Okay, no, but that's why I'm trying to rack my brain for like some of the artsy ones that might get put in. I'd imagine like some of Paul Thomas Anderson's movies, like Phantom Thread, would get inducted. maybe Uncut Gems because that was kind of a commercial hit and also like artsy. Do they only induct like do they induct like foreign films too?
No, only American films.
Okay.
Are you
So I
thinking
guess that
Parasite?
I was gonna say like Parasite or The Handmaiden or a couple other foreign films that are significant, like something that won a Palme d'Or. Let's see. From 2014, The Grand Budapest Hotel will probably get inducted because that's like by far Wes Anderson's like biggest kind of feat. Even commercially, I think it was one of his most successful. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of films you could probably pick. I'd say like what we put out would probably Get Out will probably be it, just because like for some reason that movie like in particular gets like a ton of love. I mean, it's a good film, like Get
It's my
Out
favorite
gets.
Jordan Peele movie.
I still like Nope more, but like Get Out's definitely his
I know you
crowd.
do, but
I
that's
don't
for
get
a
what's
later
so
discussion.
confusing. It's just Tremors, but with an alien, a different alien.
I haven't seen Tremors. I'm only looking at
Tremors
Nope
is
by
just
itself because I can
Jaws.
only see Nope.
Tremors is just
Whatever,
Jaws.
whatever,
You're not wrong.
whatever. Nope is a movie I will probably choose one day,
I know.
but not soon.
Let's see. I'm 50-50 on whether The Lighthouse would get in because like The Lighthouse is like really popular among like film nerds, but I don't know if it like has like the kind of clout to get into it because it wasn't like really an Oscar darling and it wasn't really a like a financial success like crowd pleaser. It was just kind of a film that like critics and like artsy and art and like nerds like me liked. Horror films fans liked it because it was a horror movie, but like yeah, I don't know. My last guess is Hereditary just because that's like such a significant horror film, like it's so clearly shaped kind of modern horror. So I would say Hereditary might get in, but yeah, that's my last guess. Maybe Top Gun Maverick because people call that the savior film. So yeah, those are my guesses. Better Off Dead.
Better Off Dead is the directorial debut of Savage Steve Holland, or just Steve Holland. If you're wondering
Better
why
known,
Savage is in front of his name, then that's because when he
Macho
was a
Man
kid,
Randy
he
Savage.
accidentally kicked somebody in the teeth during a soccer game, and the
It's a big
nickname
Bob
stuck.
Savage. Okay, yeah.
Well, that wasn't intentional.
Savage Steve,
Why is he labeled a savage if he didn't mean to do it?
because
Actually, I'll
it's
be
just
honest,
hard as
I
fuck.
don't know if it was accidental or not. I just said
Listen,
accidental
that's just a
accidentally.
savage move. It's just a savage move. I don't know. Maybe Macho Man Randy Savage was probably big at the time, so people are like, "Yo, Savage." Probably not actually. You may know Savage Steve Holland for some of his other films, such as Grow Up Timmy Turner, a Fairly Odd Parents movie.
He directed all 3 live-action Fairly Odd Parents movies, yes, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay.
Anyway, the story of how Better Off Dead came to be is actually Steve's story because well, let me explain. So, Steve originally went to Cal Arts for animation, but he switched over to live action because he found the animation process too boring and time consuming. So, he made a short film, a live action short film called My 11-Year-Old Birthday, based on his own 11th birthday party, where none of his friends showed up and the only guest was a drunken clown who was hired for entertainment. Yeah, I
Damn.
remember my 11th birthday. But this short was actually a big hit with audiences, and it caught the attention of actor Henry Winkler. And he loved it so much that he had a lunch with Steve and told him, "You need to make a movie like this." And Steve was like, "Oh, I know I have a bunch of crazy life stories." And he's like, "Perfect." So, Better Off Dead is semi autobiographical.
Hmm.
Basically, all the people in it and all the scenarios Steve actually knew and was involved in, mostly. Of course, there's some exaggeration, but yeah, dude's lived a pretty crazy life.
Now, I believed he'd be chased by kids wanting their $2 to the ends of the earth.
That is
Yeah.
true. Well,
I
to
was
an
gonna say like
extent.
Better Off Dead kind of felt to me like I'm just kind of getting into the movie a little bit, but like it reminded me of like how do I call it like a newspaper comic strip or like almost like Diary of a Wimpy Kid almost just like a bit more surreal and cartoony where it's just kind of like it kind of feels like yeah like this was probably just like events that happened in this dude's life and he was just kind of like or like a Christmas story like all these kind of like vignette kind of things where it kind of seems like was
I'm
drew
almost
from parts
done
of his
with
life.
I'm almost done with Steve, but just a few more things. So, initially test screenings for Better Off Dead were very successful and audiences loved it, especially teenagers. But when the film was widely released, it was neither a big hit critically or commercially. It grossed 10.3 million against a budget of 3.5, which granted is like 3 times its budget, but the studio still wasn't satisfied. And well, actually, thankfully for Steve, he wasn't too bothered by this. He was just happy that the film got made at all. But over the years, thanks to television broadcasting and midnight screenings, it would gain a much bigger audience, and nowadays it is considered a cult classic. And one last thing is that for years after the movie released, there was a rumor that John Cusack hated the film and that he would never work with Steve again. So, One Crazy Summer was like immediately started production after Better Off Dead, and like he just wasn't happy with certain things. So, and like it was during production, like I think I read during production of One Crazy Summer, they hosted like some screenings of Better Off Dead, and John Cusack wasn't happy about it, and that started this rumor. And after he said, after One Crazy Summer, I'm never working with you again. This was huge exaggeration. Cusack never said anything bad against Steve. He just thought Better Off Dead could have been a better movie.
No, I was gonna say Better Off Dead is actually, and like since I mentioned One Crazy Summer, it's considered like part of a kind of trilogy he made.
It
Better Off
is,
Dead, One
yes.
Crazy Summer, and How I Got into College are considered like a sort of spiritual trilogy. So if you like Better Off Dead, I'm gonna check out those two, I guess.
I've only seen Better Off Dead.
Yeah.
But anyway, what is Better Off Dead? Well, it's about a high schooler named Lane Meyer who gets dumped by his girlfriend Beth right before Christmas break. Ouch. And obviously heartbroken by this, Lane decides to try and unalive himself. But each of his attempts ends up going very wrong with very wacky results. So he decides that the only way to win back Beth's heart is to beat her new boyfriend in a ski race. And at the same time, he also is getting more acquainted with a foreign exchange student from France named Monique, and a whole bunch of other crazy characters. All right, I want Lugia to start.
Okay. So, this movie was not what I expected. I wouldn't say it's really much about the plot because there's not really much of one at all. It's more about the moments and a lot of the small jokes that get added upon later on. Like the drag race on the streets with the two Japanese guys. They do that a couple times. There's the kid who wants his $2.
There's a lot of runners.
Animated people taunting Lane about his breakup.
There's a lot of like little running things, but like overall the plot's pretty loose. Again, it reminded me of like a Peanuts movie or a Diary of a Wimpy Kid. Like it's mostly loose vignettes, but there's a couple like running threads, and they're mostly just kind of like running jokes, like how a sitcom would have a couple running jokes.
Lugia, did you like the movie?
I thought it was okay. I wasn't really vibing with it personally. I thought it was meandering because for a good half of the film, it's mainly just Lane being really depressed about his breakup and just all this other stuff happening while he's like going through this depressing time in his life. And it felt like it was going nowhere.
For the first like 15 minutes, I guess it didn't click with me, but then like eventually I kind of got it. It was basically trying to like take like a snarky kind of surreal comic strip and then just like try to turn that into a movie. So I'm just imagining like imagine like one of like the darker kind of like comic strips out there, because I thought this was gonna be like a dark comedy. It wasn't really that. This was more of like a much more of a cartoony film that's much more like laid back.
I mean, there are
So
darker elements, don't get me wrong.
they're like darker elements, but ultimately it just kind of felt like a wackier Dive Wimpy Kid or like a more adult Peanuts. Like that's what I got from it. It kind of like falls into that kind of realm of sort of meandering.
I like to
So
describe
yeah.
this movie as what if National Lampoon and a John Hughes teen comedy went splat with A Christmas Story? Because it's like
Yeah.
all three of those things mixed into one. I'm going to be very honest. I mean no exaggeration when I say this. This is the quirkiest, silliest, most 80s movie I have ever seen. And honestly, I love every second of it.
I mean, John Hughes like made most of those National Lampoon movies, but yeah, I get what you mean. It definitely A Christmas Story is definitely something you remind me of because again, A Christmas Story is like mostly a bunch of vignettes, but with like a few running things like him wanting the gun. It was basically like the
Yeah,
gun
that's the
was
main
basically
plot, but, like, there's the lamp stuff, which is just there for
yeah.
flavor, there's the stuff with the bully. Yeah, that's what Better Off Dead is. It's basically just these crazy scenarios and these kooky characters and just, like, a day in the life of, or rather, a winter in the life of.
Yeah, so instead of the whatchamacallit, the
The
gun,
plot.
the running thread here was basically just his girlfriend and the scheme. Like that was basically kind of the main running thing. And instead of, I don't know, the leg, he had the fucking the kid chasing him with his $2.
All right. Can we just talk about that? Let's be real.
That was the
Johnny
funniest part of the
is
movie.
Johnny is the real antagonist of this film. Let's be real.
He
Like, sure, there
survives
is
like a
the boyfriend.
100-foot drop from a mountain.
There is the boyfriend, which, by the way, his name is Roy Stalin, which should give you an idea of the type of tone this movie is going for. But let's
Yeah.
be real. Johnny is a much bigger threat because Lane actively fears him.
Going
Like,
into
there's
this
that scene
movie,
where he's
like,
walking
He'll
home at
jump
night
on
and the
his
whole
car, he'll
swarm,
chase him to
the
the
whole
ends of the
swarm of
earth.
paper boys are just chasing after him late at night. It's great.
the humor of this movie like almost felt like if they wanted to make like a more grounded like Bill and Ted or Freet, because like I felt like a lot of the jokes kind of had that similar surreal humor, but it was just a lot more low key instead of like heightened like those two movies were. You know, if you saw Freaks, like that has a lot of mixed stuff. Like, you know, this movie opened with like a cartoon, and I was like, oh, I did not expect this. And then it had like a bunch of stop motion stuff throughout, and I was like, okay, I kind of get like the vibe of this movie. It's like
Fun flavor.
this to me feels like something that Nickelodeon or like would air at like 6 p.m. like before they go to Nick at Night, but
So
like
like a Mr. Meaty type of thing.
yeah, like when kids are still awake, but like probably like when it starts to like transition to Nick at Night. That's what it kind of feels like to me. Or maybe like one of the first things they have at Nick at Night, or the last thing. Kind of like how regular show is kind of like the lead in to Adult Swim a lot of the times now. It was like
Hmm.
back in the day. It's like that's what it kind of reminds me of. Like, where is that kind of weird space? Like, it definitely feels like it's got that kind of like Nickelodeon kind of cartoony vibe. Ned's Declassified, but like for high schoolers instead of middle schoolers.
Quirkiness is really what I love about this film because like every character manages to stand out in some way. Like we already said, the paperboy, but also that one mailman who's like just like, "Hey Lane, yeah, heard about your breakup. You don't know me at all, but can I date Beth?"
Yeah,
And his brother,
I'm
has
gonna be
no
honest.
lines in the
And keep in
movie,
mind,
yet he has his own side plot where he's collecting box tops to build a rocket ship. You know, he also
Yeah,
acquires a ray gun and a book on how to pick up women just for the sake of it.
like when his
yeah, I
own
remember
drawings are
that.
taunting him, and
That,
even
that
Barney from Flintstones is also asking, "Hey, can
Yes.
I date
the
Beth?"
Barney one like cracked me up because like that one I just didn't expect. I was like, okay.
Hey, I know it's
Yeah,
weird we're being a
I also
cartoon, but
really
can I
died
date Beth?
like also died when like Cusack walked into his brother's room and he was just like surrounded by like hot women in lingerie, and I was like, okay.
Two
Like that's like
bits that
that's like a
absolutely crack.
Family Guy joke. That's like the kind of joke like Stewie and Family Guy would have, or like Peter just walks in and Stewie's like just surrounded by hot women, and he was like, "Hey Stewie," and then he just like leaves.
The two bits that absolutely crack me up every time is when Johnny is on top of Lane's car and Lane decides to get rid of him by driving through a car wash and Johnny says, "No, I can't swim." That gets me. And also when Ricky's mom blows up. It's just so
Um,
sudden and then it just cuts to them in the car. "Hey, Ricky, I'm sorry your mom blew up. She'll be
yeah,
fine as long as she doesn't eat any hot foods."
yeah. Also, I just realized like I was like, this kind of reminds me of like Drake and Josh or something like Nickelodeon would play, and I was like, wait a second, the guy who made Drake and Josh and all those Nickelodeon shows I'm thinking of worked on this movie. I was like, duh.
It
That's
was
probably where
Ricky.
we got it from. He who shall not be named played one of the antagonists of the film.
Lugia, did you find this movie funny?
Yeah, and a couple points it was definitely funny. Again, the Barney bit, I laughed my ass off at that. Johnny.
I'll
I'm just saying,
definitely
like the movie as a whole didn't really do much for me. I did like the little moments, but
it has
it's
it has an awkward pace. Like that's what I'm
yeah.
gonna say. Like it kind of feels
I do get that. I will admit the
it
third
feels like
act
a movie
is
that's
my
like
least
better on
I will
watch.
admit the third act is my least favorite part, if only because like the weirdness really slows down. But like
Yeah.
I still enjoy it.
Yeah, and then they try to focus on the relationship with Monique.
It almost
But
kind
if I
of
can
feels
give
like
praise,
it'd be
if I
like
can give praise to that, like credit where credit's due, they don't do like a third act breakup.
I feel like it would have been
No, they
this
broke
movie
up in the
almost feels
first
like
act. That's the point.
Yeah, but I mean, him and Monique don't have any big conflict, which is refreshing.
it reminds me of almost like one of like the Naked Gun movies, but even like more low key. Like It's like, here's the thing. The reason this movie has such a weird vibe is because movies are either like more crazy or they're more grounded. When this is just like in that weird little gray zone where it's like it reminds me of like the Naked Gun where they'll have like weird background gags in the background. But like it's like what if like the main story of the Naked Gun was kind of normal and that's what it kind of is. It's just like it's just kind of a normal movie about just like some kid moping around. It just so happens that the world he's in is just like has a bunch of weird
It's
stuff.
absolutely
Like the
crazy
weirdness
and
isn't like
quirky.
isn't constant. It's just like it's just weird enough where it's like, oh, like where it's like, oh, so it's like, yeah, it's got like a really awkward kind of rhythm to it, which I kind
Like
of
his
like, and
mother
I'm
is an
sure on
absolutely
rewatch.
awful cook, and his best friend has been stuck in high school for 7 years. He can't get any real drugs, so he resorts to snorting Jello and snow.
I think this
It's
whole
like stuff like that.
experience has
He's
made
full of that.
I think this whole experience has made Lane psychotic because there's a point where he's working at the burger shop and he recreates the scene in Frankenstein where he brings a burger to life and it starts playing
And
guitar.
it's an Eddie.
Yeah.
It's an Eddie Van Halen burger,
Like I
and
feel like
everybody wants some.
the little brother to me like is basically just like Megan from Drake and Josh, but like if he wasn't evil, like he's just like doing his own like little tinkering thing. Like it's
He has
like
his
every
own
time you see
side.
him,
He's building a
like
rocket.
he builds like a laser gun at one point. Like that one of the
He
first things you
does.
see him do is just build a laser gun and like yeah, just have a bunch of like random gags with like the mom. And like the weird thing is like they just don't treat it as weird. They just treat it as like normal. So it's just like a mildly surreal thing. It's just
That's
like
the great thing. That's why I love this movie. It's so weird,
yeah,
yet
I
nobody
know.
acknowledges it.
I don't know. I recommend it to like an Adams Family fan or like some guy who's like into Tim Burton movies or like Freaked or Joe Dante.
But the question remains: is this a Christmas movie? It's not. It's not. There's one scene that takes place during Christmas, and there's winter aesthetic. It's not a Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's a winter movie, but it's not a Christmas movie.
The ski
Yeah.
movie.
I misremembered. I thought this movie had a lot more Christmas aesthetic to it. I'd known that I probably would have chose something else,
I mean,
but
that's
no,
fine.
I'm still glad to have picked this one because like I was genuinely curious what you guys would think about this because again, this is a very weird, very quirky movie, and I don't know if that would be to your taste or not.
Yeah. No, I think it's cool just because like again, it's not like full spoof movie territory, but like it's still like really weird. So like I kind of like it. Yeah.
I find it kind of funny. This movie released in 1985, same year as Back to the Future, and the thing that initiates the ski race is when Lane calls Roy a chicken. He says, "What'd you say? You just called me a chicken?"
There's also the drag race moment, but
There is.
it's if
That was
Marty
Back to the
McFly actually
Future.
went through with it 4 times, maybe more.
I
I
I had
lost
a
count.
nickel for the number of 1985 movies. I'd have two nickels. Yeah, no. I
He's
think
even
this
got the life
movie is.
preserver.
He did, yeah. Actually, here's a fun fact. So my my mom, this movie is one of her favorites. I don't know if she said she saw it in theaters or not, but she did tell me one time, like years ago, she and her friends basically stayed up an entire night and watched this movie 4 times in a row.
Oh, it's kind of like that
Any
one day where we
any reason
watched
as to
all the Back to
why?
the Future movies.
They loved it that much.
Okay.
She still loves this movie. Like I told her, next movie's Better Off Dead. She's like, "Ah, yeah." Yeah, no, I think, like I said, this movie is very crazy, very quirky, very silly, but I honestly love it for all those reasons.
So if you like Better Off Dead, checked out the other two movies that Holland made before he started working for Nickelodeon, and also watch some Nickelodeon shows because those honestly it's a fit that makes a lot more sense now that I think about it. So like Ned's a Classified or Drake and Josh.
All right, Red, it is your turn.
Yeah, I basically already told you guys last week. I said fuck it. Godfather duology.
Just a
Godfather
duology,
1 and 2.
no
Duology or
3.
You can watch the third one. We'll probably talk about the third one.
I mean,
But
I
like
I do have the trilogy. Like, there's nothing stopping
okay,
me.
here's what it is. So Godfather 1 and 2 are basically just like one big story, and then Godfather 3 is an epilogue. So that's kind of like how we're probably gonna talk about it. We're probably just gonna talk about Godfather 1 and 2 as like one big film, and then Godfather 3 as like an epilogue. So I was thinking we could do that and like or just not talk about Godfather 3 if you guys don't feel like it. But like, yeah, it's ultimately up to you guys. I'm thinking only 1 and 2, but if you guys want to see 3 or you guys happen to see 3 by the time we record next episode, go ahead.
All right.
I'll be honest, I probably won't watch 3, but maybe.
I'm probably gonna watch 3 just because I have like the new director's cut, and I've been like, if I'm gonna rewatch it, I might as well check out that. But like, yeah, let's see. Like, I don't know. Each movie is like 3 hours long, so if you don't want to see 3, I understand.
That is a commitment. Granted, it is winter break, but still, that is a commitment.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, listen, we're never gonna talk about the Godfather movie if it's not during the time where we're gonna have like 2-3 weeks before the next episode. So I'm like, this is the only shot. This is the one shot. The one.
It is the only shot, but at the same time, it's still long.
It's like, because we're let's be honest, we're fucking never talking about the Lord of the Rings movies. We're never gonna talk about
No.
that shit, man. That's 9 hours straight, and we have to talk about all 3 if we're gonna talk about all 3. Like, the Godfather, at least I can like break it up a bit. But I'm like, yeah, like I could make you guys do the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but like, why? Why bother? Like, no, we're gonna do the Godfather duology, maybe the third one optional. Make you do Lawrence of Arabia, Ben-Hur double feature, both 4 hours long. Just 'cause, fuck you. Gone with the Wind and Giant double feature, both 4 hours long. Nah, it's just this. So yeah, Godfather 1 and 2. Rounding out the Francis Ford Coppola 70s movies. It's kind of weird that we're probably gonna end up talking about every movie that man made, which is kind of funny. When we started this show, like I don't think I was that big of a Francis Ford Coppola fan, but like I guess now I am. So yeah. It's kind of funny that we saw the first 2. We saw 2 out of 4 of the movies he made in the 70s, and they weren't the popular ones. They were the other ones.
Because, we don't. What's the word I'm
I mean,
looking for? We don't.
Apocalypse
Discriminate.
Now is popular. Apocalypse
No,
Now is
it's not.
popular, but like you know.
I mean, we don't follow convention, or I don't know.
Yes,
We're weird with it.
Weird is fun.
I believe in America. So
All right,
yeah,
so yes, when we come back, it'll be The Godfather 1 and 2, maybe 3. We'll see.
Yeah.
This has been It's Always Sunny in Hollywood. I'd love to stay and talk more, but unfortunately, I just got word of a family emergency involving my grandmother dropping acid and hijacking a school bus full of penguins. So I got to go deal with that. Bye.